Greetings, my friends. I want to thank you all for subscribing. I want to thank all of my channel members for supporting me in this endeavor to save pop culture. And if you are not subscribed, please consider supporting this channel. We need you. Thank you. My friends, we have some new leaks from my Hollywood spies and from the source codenamed Sparrow about what's allegedly happening inside Lucasfilm. At long last, we may have an answer as to why Kennedy has survived as Lucasfilm president all these years, despite constant failures, false starts, restarts with new directors and writers, insubordination, and horrific budget overages that would absolutely have gotten anyone else fired back in the days when Hollywood was sane. There can be no doubt that Lucasfilm and Disney in general are in chaos. Upheaval and paranoia are the words of the day. As Disney stock dips, attendance at Disney parks is reportedly getting worse as the summer wears on, and Bob Iger publicly proclaimed that Disney is backing away from new Star Wars and Marvel projects, given that they, fail and lose money all the time. Stuff like that. According to CNBC, quote, Disney is slowing down when it comes to making movies and TV series for its Marvel Studios and Lucasfilm franchises, CEO Bob Iger said Thursday on CNBC. The move comes as the company is looking to cut costs during a time when its recent films, from Marvel to animation, have underwhelmed at the box office. There hasn't been a Star Wars film in theaters since 2019, and the company is focused primarily on series, such as Emmy nominees Andor and Obi-Wan Kenobi for Disney+, Lucasfilm's Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, the fifth film in that franchise, has underwhelmed at the box office despite a plum release date around the 4th of July, unquote. In other words, Disney has ruined Star Wars and Marvel, that's the bottom line. Otherwise, they'd be making more of it. In short, Disney is backing away from Star Wars and Marvel because they can't afford to waste more money on properties that are floundering. Turns out, even in the batshit crazy woke era, you can only throw so much money away until investors start grumbling and Disney starts drowning in red ink. But now I'd like to share with you all an update from my Hollywood spies, and then I'll sit down with Kamran Pasha and discuss the latest allegations from the agent codenamed Sparrow. At this point, I must state that what I'm about to share with you is information from sources claiming knowledge of the situation at Disney and Lucasfilm, but since I cannot personally verify any of this information, I am presenting it as unverified rumor, and I ask you to please take it with a grain of salt. Here is the latest from my Hollywood spies. Quote, as we understand it, this is what's happening moving forward. All Star Wars projects are on ice. What about the new Rey movie? That was never a thing. It was just another desperate attempt for KK to stay relevant. The only project that is still going on is under Jon Favreau, Mando Season 4, but it has stopped due to the actor's strike. Now, what about The Acolyte? We can't seem to nail this down. As we understand it, this is in limbo, but it does seem that it is canceled. We'll keep digging on this. What of KK? The most we can get out of people is she's on an extended leave of absence. She's not fired, not officially at least. We will continue to dig, but right now everybody is scared of losing their jobs and are a bit nervous about talking, unquote. My spies tell me Lucasfilm is in turmoil, but what does Sparrow have to say? Let's turn to Kamran and find out what he's heard. Kamran, welcome, my friend. It's good to see you again.
Wonderful to see you again, Doomcock. We're living in exciting times, and a lot of things are happening, and it's amazing how much is happening beneath the surface, and yet both of you and I are seeming to at least find out about things that are being suppressed from public knowledge.
Absolutely, and I'm delighted to have you here, and I would hope that you could go ahead and bring us up to speed on the latest rumors from Sparrow.
Well, so this is actually built on what you yourself revealed only a few days ago, and I'll be honest with you, Doomcock, when you put your video out, I believe it was Tuesday maybe, when you put your video out, you think you had sent me a message that you had some major important news, and you really did when you reported it. I think like a lot of people, I was disappointed to hear that she might be staying on, or at least in some have her title still for some time. And I was resistant to the idea. I was like, that can't be right. That can't be right. I mean, with Indiana Jones bombing, Kathleen Kennedy's got to be out soon. Just in a real, on a rational world, you know, you made the biggest bomb in Hollywood history, right? You know, bigger than Tom Carter. In a rational world, she'd be let go, or someone else would be let go. So I was like, I think someone's feeding Doomcock bad info. And then,
you're not living in a rational world, Cameron. Look out the window. You're in Los Angeles, so.
Yeah, you can see I've got the window right there.
But yeah, this was a source that longtime source had a contact relayed to me the events of this alleged second meeting, and so I went ahead and conveyed it to you all, and went ahead and included data from the mainstream media that tended to support that narrative. But go ahead, Cameron.
Yeah, exactly. But I didn't want it. I didn't want any of it to be true, and I think it's true for a lot of people. They didn't want any of it true.
Right.
So because we just want the story to end. We want this narrative.
Yes.
But then, and my contact with Hall Sparrow inside of Lucasfilm has been quiet for several days because there's a lot of eyes on everybody right now. My understanding is that the people that I call the Five Horsemen, the people that have been sent in by Iger to serve as interim leaders of Lucasfilm at the moment, have essentially told everybody, anybody caught leaking is out, right? Is out. You're fired, and there's no tolerance. It's a zero tolerance policy, right? And so they like, gotta take a break. I'm out. And then, but they were able to get me a message yesterday, and it actually supported what you had posted and gave a little bit more information that might explain why some of that is happening, and it also gives us some hope that there is still a way for Ms. Kennedy to leave earlier than perhaps the system is saying. Okay, so let me.
That's right, and I mean this information. I'll just say this information may well explain this otherwise incomprehensible string of failures and false starts and wastes of money, insubordination. It's almost like she was bulletproof the entire time. And indeed, if this rumor from Sparrow is correct, it explains why. And this is a question that has burned in the breasts of many Star Wars fans for, since 2016. So go ahead and lay it on us.
Yeah. So let me just go through the points they made. So first, I want to talk about stuff that because people need to understand context. We are winning, and I would suggest we've won the long-term battle that we've all wanted, was for Ms. Kennedy not be able to interfere in Lucasfilm any further, right, with her destructive vision and her incompetence, right? And so let me get those points, and then let me explain the new revelation. So the Sparrow was clear about several things. One, they said is, the reality is she is out of power. They said Kathleen Kennedy is essentially locked out of the office, the Lucasfilm offices. The Horsemen, their leader, who they like to call, the Witch King of Burbank. The Witch King of Burbank has made it clear that Ms. Kennedy cannot return to the premises without escort approved by them. So basically, if she comes in, she'd be like any of us who were being brought in for a tour of Lucasfilm, like having in some ways it's like in the Soviet Union in 1952, where you come to visit and you've got like a minder with you,
right, looking over your shoulder, reporting into their collar, pressing their collar and speaking down into their chest.
And I don't think she would return because it's quite humiliating to be walking around as the president and have this person standing over your shoulder saying, no, actually you can't go there. No, I don't think you should be on your computer. I mean, it's degrading, right? I mean, so I don't think she will physically return. But that's the condition they placed on it, number one. So number two, Sparrow reiterated that she has lost all decision-making power. That the Nazgul, these Five Horsemen, have made it very clear to everyone in the company now. They've had 2 meetings that we're the ones in charge for the time being, and Ms. Kennedy is unavailable to comment, right? And so we're going to be commenting on her behalf. We're speaking on behalf of the company, right? And so she doesn't have, it's like she doesn't have the power even to green light, order office staplers, right? Everything has to go through these two. So for those who are, those who are concerned that she's still going to be able to, well, let's push this Acolyte forward. We're going to get to the Acolyte in a second. Let's push the Acolyte forward. Let's push this. Let's push the Rey movie forward. Nothing is moving forward without, she has lost green light ability internally. It's these 5 people who are answering directly to Iger that will say what happens to that company. And so if you dislike like what's going to happen in the next few months, you got these people to blame. You don't have Kennedy to blame anymore because that's been stripped away from her. So that, for a lot of people, if you take a moment to breathe, that's exactly what we wanted, for all the time, is for her to stop.
Absolutely. And also, I find it very plausible indeed, because you cannot waste hundreds and millions of dollars on as you put it, what looks like at this point to be the biggest pound for pound, box office bomb in Hollywood history. You can't do that without accountants coming in and basically assuming fiscal control to reassert, responsibility and stop the bleeding, the financial bleeding.
Yeah, absolutely. So those are the two foundational points that Sparrow made. But now let's get to where they paralleled with what you reported. So they did say this, and then I'm going to add the caveat, which is a very interesting caveat. So they did say this. So Kennedy, as of today, will retain her title of president for the time being, because the Horsemen have to deal with a specific contractual issue that's a problem, and this may explain what the problem has been for over a decade. So according to Sparrow, and it actually took them a while to get this out, because this is not known even within the coffers of Lucasfilm. It took a lot of snooping around and quietly asking questions for them to be able to say, okay, this is what's going on. What's really happening here? Because they didn't know either. Why isn't she out now, right? She doesn't have power.
And it is insane. It is insane. I mean, this is absolutely incomprehensible. So this is a bombshell, folks.
This is a bombshell.
Pay attention. Go ahead. If it's true. It's a rumor, but let's go ahead.
It certainly seems to explain things. I always like things that, it's Occam's razor. It certainly is the simplest explanation for everything, right? It's even, and so what they say is that the problem in Kennedy's contract is that I'm going to quote it. I'm going to quote what I wrote here on the Patreon. Quote, apparently Kennedy has an insane clause going back to the original sale of Lucasfilm to Disney that she cannot be removed even for a cause like everyone else on the planet. Right, that she can only, even if she loses the money, even if she mismanages things, even if she's a bad manager of the studio, she can't be fired for that reason. There is a reason why she could be let go, which I'm going to get to, but she can't be fired, but Disney has the power at the end of whatever her contract is at any given time to not renew it. That is the only way they can get rid of her, except for one special caveat, which we're going to get to. So now Sparrow wasn't sure if how far back this went. Certainly went back to the days of Lucas. It appears to have been there since 2012, since the sale of Lucasfilm. This might have even been inserted, and Sparrow was wondering, this might have even been inserted by Lucas himself. And maybe Lucas did that because he thought at the time that this was his way to make sure that the standard thing you do in Hollywood is, you buy the company, then you oust the people that are there, right? And so this may have been when he thought, I put in my loyal acolyte who's promised me she's going to continue my vision, and Iger might get rid of my people. So I'm going to protect my people by putting this clause in. Turns out it didn't work out the way he thought, right? And so
no, but that is absolutely plausible, because it's just like they tossed out his three outlines for the sequel trilogy. Just tossed them out, and I'm sure he was counting on Kennedy to go ahead and shepherd those through the system. So she betrayed him. It did him no good, if indeed he was the one that insisted on that clause.
And it feels like it, because it's not something that I think Disney would have offered her up, right? Because it's not something they would want. They'd lose power. Then look at the damage that it's caused, right? And so it is something that may have been. It feels to me that it may have been insisted by George, misunderstanding what she would do with that Excalibur in her hand when he pulled it out of the stone for her, right? And so that is the problem. That explains a lot. Explains her behavior over the last 10 years, where she acts like she's untouchable. It explains her incredible insubordination that we have seen, that you and I both reported. Sparrow reported, to much controversy today, had reported that Iger had ordered back in February, because she can willingly step down. That's part of her contract. She can leave. And it's like, you're gonna, why don't you just leave at the end of this? Why don't you take a Viking funeral, take all these accolades at Star Wars Celebration, and they had worked out a separation agreement, which I had reported earlier, something like $30 million payout when you leave, right? So just take it and go. And she said, nah, I'm not going to do that. You can't make me do that. So I'm going to go announce all these stupid new projects that you haven't approved. Because what you going to do about it, Bob? What are you going to do about it? You can't fire me. You can't fire me, Bob. What are you going to do about it? That suddenly explains the insubordination, and explains the insubordination that you also reported in her meeting just 2 or 3 weeks ago, where she's sitting in the room mocking Bob Iger to his face in front of his top executives. Because what you going to do, Bob? You can't fire me.
Yep. Yes, that explains so much. This is potentially groundbreaking. This is earth-shattering revelation, if true.
If true, and it explains everything, because we keep saying, why? If someone talked to me like that as an employee, I would fire them on the spot, and Iger will fire people on the spot. He just did that with the head of DEI 10 days ago. She came into his office and said, I don't want to report to anybody else. I want to report directly to you, essentially making herself a C-suite person, right? And he said,
right.
You're Ms. Latondra Newton. You're fired. Get out of my office. He did it right there, right?
Yep.
One of my, while she wasn't Sparrow, was another source inside of Disney that said that the same thing happened with Alonso. That Iger had ordered Feige to fire Alonso, and he was afraid to do it. He's like, well, she's going to come at me as a white male. I can't do it. Iger's like, all right, send her here. And he fired her, right? And so he has no problem firing insubordinate troublemakers. So why won't he do it with this? Because he's not allowed to do it with this, right?
That was an insane clause. And it explains, I think, Alonso and Latondra Newton. I mean, look, when this is not widely known throughout the company, and these women observe Kennedy getting away with murder, they naturally think that they can as well. Perhaps they mistake this contractual clause as weakness on the part of Mr. Iger, and they gambled and they lost. They lost big time. And that would explain why he would fire them instantly on the spot, because he's aware of this problem in the power dynamic and the way that it makes him look in the company. So having some heads metaphorically roll out of his office is a good play for him to send a signal that Kennedy is a special case. For whatever reason that you may not understand, you cannot get away with this. I think that was wise.
Yeah. Now, you reported, at least it was reported to you, that her contract goes on for another 18 months. I don't know if it goes on that long. Sparrow doesn't have her contract end date. They're pretty clear that, look, no matter what happens, they're not going to renew it. They're done. I mean, but they have to play it out unless a certain thing can happen. But let's think for a second. Let's even go with that it's 18 more months. Let's say we're stuck with her till the end of 2024, till December 2024. Let's just go with that, okay? If that is the case, then guess what? That also explains why suddenly Bob Iger is renewed for 2 years till 2026, because he can outlast her now.
Right.
She may have gambled. She may have been gambling that he will be fired before she can be removed. And because if he's let go, or his contract ends before hers is, maybe someone more amenable to her will be the next person and will renew her contract, because that's her way in. Keep getting renewals, right?
Exactly.
But
yes.
If he outlasts her, and then if he's still standing at let's say December 2024, if that's the case, if he's still there, well, I guess your time's up. There's nothing you can do about it. Your contract says, I don't have to renew you. I'm not renewing you, right? That actually explains the sudden announcement of this thing, and if you recall, and your sources confirmed the meeting as well. It's the two meetings, right, of the Horsemen and the general staff of Lucasfilm. The press release for Iger being renewed for 2 years was put out at exactly the time the first Lucasfilm meeting began. It was timed for it. Very good with timing. He timed her humiliations on the red carpet at Cannes, where he closed down the hotel, the Galactic Star Cruiser Hotel, and removed Willow from the Disney Plus service while she was standing on the red carpet with him. Right. He timed it. So he's very good with timing his Shakespearean messages. So suddenly, here's a message, Kathy, as I'm about to tell your staff that you're not going to be doing this no more, at least on a practical level. I'm also letting you know that I've just gotten an extension that outlasts you. So you're done. right?
I essentially think it's a twofold strategy here because not only is it, as you say, in regards to the Kennedy problem and so on, but also because it was a bit of positive news, a bit of positive spin in a very, very bleak Disney news cycle with, the stock being down and, movies bombing, losses, lowered attendance at the parks. I mean, it's been a biblical plague kind of time. And so he would want to have a positive, news story out there in the cycle and also assert that he has the backing and the power to do the things that need to be done over the next couple of years.
Absolutely. So now let's get to where there's still hope that this drama. I mean, on a practical level, I personally think we've won. If she's already been said you can't come into the office and you can't do anything and you don't have email anymore. Well, I mean, at this point, all we're asking for is the public humiliation of her losing her job, right? But if she's no longer able to interfere and allowing at least to try to put Star Wars, try to put Lucasfilm back on track, which is going to be a several-year process, at least that can begin now, right? So we've won in that respect. But I think a lot of people are like, well, won't believe it until I say to the trades that she's gone. Well, you might still get it. So here's the thing. This is the other caveat, along with the bombshell of that she can't be fired even for cause, but she can be fired for one thing, which is there is a morals clause in her employment contract, which is a standard thing, which is that if you are accused of like a Weinstein sexual impropriety thing, or you're convicted of some kind of, perhaps even if you're accused or arraigned for some kind of crime, that brings your morals into question, right? And so an accusation of criminal behavior is enough to say you're embarrassing the company from a moral level, and we're going to have to let you go, right? You can be incompetent, but you can't be immoral and you can't be criminal, right? And so that is the thing. And so Sparrow is saying that the horsemen don't want her there. They're like the Terminator. They've been sent there. They have a job. Their job is to get rid of her. So they won't stop. Like the Terminator, they won't stop. They won't sleep. They're not going to stop coming. So, okay, because they haven't given their boss what he wants, which is to get rid of her, right? Because after she humiliated him in front of the execs, you can imagine how much it eats up Iger knows she's still there, even in name, right? Right. It eats him up. It's insulting. I'm sure it enrages him that she would insult him in front of everyone, and he can and still retain money and so he sent those people to get rid of her, and now they're still looking. And the thing they've been looking for, and this links to an earlier report that I had, which is they're trying to find evidence of criminal activity that specifically implicates her. So I had reported a few days ago through Sparrow that, and in fact, your sources had said that they were finding all kinds of malfeasance inside of the company, a lot of stuff that's, shifting money here and there, especially around the acolyte thing, inappropriate accounting, all that stuff. Sparrow says, yeah, they found all that stuff. And then they found one thing more that they didn't expect, which was their bingo, at least the beginning of their bingo moment, which is that they found an evidence, and you and I have talked online about what that evidence is. I don't want to go on it publicly, but they found evidence of some kind of criminal behavior, stuff that should be given to the district attorney associated with the project, the Acolyte. And so they've held that because that's the thing they were looking for. And so you and I have talked about some of this evidence, but what I will say to the public is that the problem is that the evidence they found, apparently, it zeroes in on Ms. Leslye Headland, who's the head of the Acolyte, or whatever that Acolyte thing is, right? And that it implicates her as the driving person of the problem that they found. And it only tangentially implicates Kennedy as someone who, looking at the evidence would suggest, did she authorize this? Was she fully aware of this? Is she assenting by silence? And so that's not enough to say, well, you did this. But it is enough to put a certain person under the spotlight, Ms. Headland. You reported last week that you had heard from your sources that Leslye Headland was coming into the office probably on Monday. Is that correct? You reported that?
That is more or less, yes, that she's been ordered to report in with documents and so on and so forth for a meeting.
Correct. And so that meeting did happen. Sparrow, they didn't confirm that they saw her with their own eyes, but they did see her car. They know her car, and I think she probably has a set parking space, right, like Sparrow does, right? So they saw her car in the office on Monday, which they were startled by. right? So that's suddenly, because she doesn't come in every day. She only has been in recently because she's off doing 3 other projects for other networks, right? But she's suddenly back. And they noted that. That's the Monday. Then after they saw the car, they were able to gain the information as to what happened apparently at that meeting, which is that apparently the horsemen are breathing down Ms. Headland's neck. It's the old prosecutorial thing. It's like, look, we have this thing, we have this document, or this evidence, this physical thing that shows something happened here that you really don't want us to be sending up to the authorities, right? You see this, right? So, what can you give us? Can you give us something bigger than you for us to put our attention on? So they're trying to put the screws on Ms. Headland to throw Kathleen Kennedy under the bus and say, this was all her idea. This wasn't me, right? That you found.
Right.
And if they can get her to do that, then they've got their morals clause. They can go back and say, this scheme that we uncovered that's illegal was not just Ms. Headland acting on her own behalf, and maybe Kathy learning about it and not doing anything about it, or not fully understanding it. But now it's like, no, she was doing it on behalf of her boss. Now, whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I do know this. Whether it's true or not that Ms. Kennedy ordered whatever this thing is, I can't say that. I don't even know that she did. But
right, and of course, all this is rumor as well. I just want to emphasize that.
This is all rumor.
I haven't either.
All rumor. This is what people are telling me. What can I tell you? I haven't seen this stuff myself, right, with my own eyes, right? And so it's what people are claiming. And so, assuming that this narrative that is being told to me is true, what I do know is Ms. Headland has no problem throwing people under the bus. Her bosses. She did it with Harvey Weinstein, right? Her boss for right. He is currently incarcerated, and she's walking free. So this is someone who, when it's me versus the boss, this is someone that has no problem disassociating from the boss.
Right, absolutely.
No problem putting their own needs first, right? That's their actual modus operandi. So, assuming this narrative is true, and Sparrow themselves wasn't in that meeting, so they're hearing a game of telephone, right? So it could be that they're not being proper. You said it in your caveats in the recent videos. They may be getting incorrect information, but they're feeding what they're getting, right? Just like your sources may not be getting the full picture, and that's fine. We're in a world of rumors. I'm not there. I don't know. I'm trying to explain context of things. So if this is true, if this is true, then certainly they're trying to find the smoking gun part 2, which they can specifically use against Ms. Kennedy to say, okay, yeah, I know you're supposed to stay out your contract, even hanging out the south of France or whatever, but I'm sorry, this is a violation of your morals contract, so we're really just going to have to terminate you.
Absolutely, it's a fascinating story, and it explains potentially a lot. And when you have to examine hypotheticals, you look at how well this hypothesis conforms to the facts on the ground as they appear to be. How thoroughly does it explain inexplicable things? And this hypothesis is scoring very highly in a lot of those regards.
Yeah, it certainly seems plausible to me, right? It certainly seems there may be something else going on. Maybe it's 100% wrong, but it's certainly it's plausible. And the only last thing I'll say to add on top of that is that the one thing that Iger did promise Ms. Kennedy that you and I both reported a couple of months ago now, or at least a month ago, it feels like it's been 10 years, that there were these private meetings with Bob Iger where he had some conversations with her that were unpleasant. We both reported that based on our separate sources. And, Sparrow told me that they'd heard that in one of those meetings, Iger had said, because she was apparently grumbling about it at the office, right? That's why they heard about it. It's literally like a rumor. They're like, she's walking around saying, who the hell does this guy think he is? And especially if she's got a no fire clause, you can imagine she thinks she can do that, right? Do you know who he's dealing with? He can't talk to me that way, right? So she was apparently grumbling about that. Iger had said, if Indiana Jones fails, the severance contract, the $30 million severance contract that we had agreed to is out the window. You're going to get nothing, right? And he does have the authority to do that, even if he doesn't have the authority to remove her. And so Sparrow said, now, whenever she's out, whether she's out, in 6 months, 18 months, or out whenever they find the morals clause thing they're looking for, then she's got nothing. The executive parachute has been taken away. She's just going to leave. And that, granted, she and her husband have done quite well, but, in the industry, more money is better than less money. And so you walk out with that money, that's definitely not an outcome anybody wants, right? Walking away from $30 million, Iger said, I told you, Indiana Jones got to make a profit, and as of today, it doesn't look like it's going to make a profit, right? And so it's like, okay, well, you insult, that's it. I can keep this promise to you, which is you're going to walk out of here without your severance package. So good luck to you.
This is fascinating turn of events, Cameron. It's weird times at Lucasfilm and Disney. I don't think they've ever been in such deep trouble, not since the 80s, late 70s, early 80s. Turmoil is a formula for change. A lot of times you've got to hit rock bottom before you can actually respond to the intervention and the precious gift that's offered. So let's hope that Iger and Mickey and the Disney board have learned a little something, and moving forward, who knows? Maybe they'll get back to making solid entertainment.
It'll get there. We had to have to be patient, because now the stuff that we're seeing today, we will not see the consequence of that on screen for about 2 to 3 years. So that's reality.
That's the reality of it. Go ahead and plug your Patreon, my friend.
Yeah, please. And I at this point, it feels like it's everyone first of all should support your Patreon, because I feel like I have a good portion of your Patreon overlaps my Patreon. A lot of people support you and then come to mine, and because we have a good friendship. I don't got a lot of friends left in YouTube, and I'm glad to have one of the best people in YouTube as a friend. And so yes, my Patreon. I'm sure to throw a link into it. It's my name, Patreon.com/Kamran Pasha. Come in there. I got lots of stuff beyond scoops. I scoop only when I get them. I actually have other things to talk about. I talk about Hollywood, my own opinions of what's happening. I share my ideas on writing. I give movie reviews. I've reviewed both Barbie and Oppenheimer, which I stayed up late last night watching both of them for Barbenheimer. Reviewed them, and I share my methods of screenwriting, which a lot of people found helpful. You can do consulting work with me through the Patreon if you're a writer who's got a script or a book or something that you're struggling with. A lot of people take advantage of that. So we'll throw that in there. Thank you for letting me come on your channel. The fact is, you're still breaking news. Sparrow is confirming something you put out several days ago, and may have added some more information, but the fact is you're on the leading edge of the knife here, and you're getting this information out, and you've built sources over many years, and I thank you for letting me be able to come on and share some new perspectives on it. But you've got something amazing going on here, Doomcock, and I hope this channel continues to grow.
Thank you, my friend. So subscribe, folks, and thank you all for your attention. And from the center of the earth, I am bidding you all, my friends, stay angry. Ha 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 ha.